You got a chance to catch Ohtani, a few times up there, and can you just take us through like what does his routine look like, Hop, and like what's he like as a guy, and what was it like catching him?
The way I describe Show to people is, when you see a player come up, he's super talented, but he just dogs the rest. And then people are like, oh, if he just worked hard, what could he be? Like, that's Show. Like, Show not only has that talent, but he works his butt off too. And you just see why he gets the results he does, because he does work so hard and he's so attentive to how he's treating his body and how he's going about it. I haven't seen a lot of guys more detailed in their pregame stuff than he is.
And I'm in love with the good life. Can't give it up. Make it to the top. Keep climbing. I wanna live it up. The good life. I'm coming up. I'm coming up. The good life. Good life. Oh, good life. Good life. Good life. Good life.
Boom, coming in hot, Chichi. It's gonna be a good one today, brother.
Dude, I'm fired up, man. I got my Catholic League brethren over here, Long Island style, dude. We're doing it up, man, with Long Island baseball player.
Yeah, this is gonna be great, dude. One of the best young players in the game, one of the best catchers in the game right now, with some stupid pop, really stupid pop. The catcher for the Angels, Logan O'Hoppe. Logan, man, thank you so much for joining us, stepping inside the mayor's office, brother. How you doing, man?
I'm great. I appreciate you guys having me and appreciate the intro, of course. I've been watching this for a few years now. I know my parents have too, so it's pretty cool to be here with you guys.
It's great, dude. Thank you, man. So, dude, how's everything going? Where do you spend the off season? Because I know, listen, I had a connection with you right away. My dad grew up in Sayville, New York, and dude, like, I used to go there my whole like Foster Avenue. We used to go to Foster Avenue, throw snowballs off off the house, and rip them at the cars there. And then I saw you from Sayville. I'm like, wow, it's incredible. So are you still spend time in Sayville, or are you out in Arizona? Where are you for the off season?
No, I'm in Sayville. The food's too good. It keeps me coming back every year. So I get back there and get back home with the family, and it's great. Obviously take some trips here and there and go see some different guys and stuff like that throughout the off season.
That's great,
but for the most
dude.
part,
Do you ever go down to my Uncle John's, the Cull House?
That was a staple growing up. Yeah, I've been down there a bunch. So we saw your jersey on the wall, and yeah, it was good to put a face to the name a couple years ago.
I know my uncle used to say, like, he'd have always have the Reds games on, and people would come in and they'd be like, "Hey, we need the Yankee game on, we need the Giants." He's like, "No, we only watch Cincinnati Reds at the Cull House." And I'm like, "That's incredible."
Only way it should be. That's
so
awesome.
Great,
it's the only
dude.
way it should be.
So what about
sure.
the off season, man? Like, can you take us through, like, what does your process look like in the off season? Your mornings, what are you doing working out wise?
Yeah, it's pretty different depending on the time of the off season. The first month or so I get home, I'm recovering from the year. In the gym, my trainer has a place in Hauppauge for the Long Island people listen, they know what that is. But I go there. There 6 days a week, and for the first month, I'm just moving, not picking up a bat or throwing or anything. But then after that, start building up the baseball stuff. It starts very light, but then the facility I do that at, I'm actually here right now, so it's no more than 10 minutes from my guy Belding's place, and then go get some treatment after that with my PT who was from St. John the Baptist, as Rich and I talked about before. And it's a pretty good flow. It lift, do my baseball stuff, and then treatment after that. And then after that, it's home and eating the food like I alluded to before.
That's awesome, man. How has your routine changed over the years? I know for me, looking back, man, as you learn what it takes to really be at the big league level and stay there, and what it takes for your body to be at a certain place, what are some of the things that you do now that maybe you didn't do a couple years ago?
Yeah, when I first got drafted, I mean, I was a skinny kid, like most kids are out of high school, especially, and the goal of the first offseason was to throw on size, and I feel like since then we started throwing weight around, and then it's slowly tapered off into more mobility and more focused on movement patterns and stuff like that. So I still enjoy throwing some weight around the weight room, but it's not like it used to be by any means. It's much more methodical and making sure I'm moving the right way and able to sustain a good shape for.
Yeah, isn't
for
that incredible?
162.
Like 162. Like I look back. It's funny. Dude, it's
I
crazy.
look
It's
back,
so
it's
funny, man,
crazy.
because you'll see one day when you're in 15 years from now, when you've had an amazing career, you'll look back. Like I look back and I'm like, how did I do that? Because mentally, I felt like I was in such a different space. It's like you don't realize like you're going. You're almost like an animal. You know what I mean? Because you're like, I got to play 162. I got to get ready in the off season, and the routine I have to put together during the the year is something that's at another level. Like we always say, this game is so mental. It really is. At the end of the day, I mean, it's probably the most important thing. How have you learned to prepare mentally? To get through the 162, especially as a catcher, dude. The demand for you guys, I really believe, mentally and physically, is at another level. What are some of the things that adjustments you've had to make on the mental side of the game?
Well, I appreciate that. I learned a lot this year, especially being hurt in 23. It was just a different goal. My goal in 23 was to get back and play, and I didn't necessarily care about the level I played at. I just wanted to make sure I could get back and do it. This year was completely different because I was healthy the whole time. And to be honest with you, we can get into this a little bit later, but I had a really bad month in August and for half of September. And falling on my face a little bit like that taught me more than I could ever imagine. Reflected on it a lot and still am being home this off season, but it definitely has taught me a lot. I would be here forever if I told you every detail, but little things, just like how I'm going about different things, where I push too hard, where I need to dial it back, where I can manage things a little bit better. And even on the mental side of things, understanding that it's not life and death, especially early in your career and coming up, I treated it that way. And I treated it that way even this year, and I really drove myself insane a lot of the nights. So the quiet got pretty loud there towards the end. But I'm grateful for those experiences because I learned a lot from it, and I'm excited to go into the season.
Dude,
with a little
isn't
bit of
that?
different
I
approach.
love that, man, because it's the truth. Like if I always say, if you don't have proper perspective on who you are as a man, because that person gets in the box for every single at bat. This game will eat you up. At least that was my experience too. When I was young, I was like, baseball, baseball, baseball. And then I realized, man, like I'm a person first. Like if I go 0 for 4 or 4 strikeouts, I'm not going to die. And if I get released, I'm still going to go on with life. I mean, is that what you felt like, trying to get a better perspective on basically life in baseball?
That is it. I had a lot of experiences in my life that like external factors that helped me realize that, but I always say I don't think you can understand it until you go through it yourself. And I really did. I treated it like life and death. I put so much weight on it, and I think it affected a lot of relationships when I was younger with different people, and just my own headspace, like the constant ups and downs of the season when you're thinking that way. So I'm grateful because I practiced some different things from a mental perspective this offseason. And it's little things, like even with my training, I try to implement the same things I can in the season. And I feel like I'm going into camp this year with a new toy, and it's on top of my shoulders, so I'm looking
It'll be your
forward to
number
using
one
it.
toy, bro. That's incredible, dude. I love looking
Appreciate
at
it.
some of the things you do, man. Obviously, if anyone's ever been around you, you're a big dude and you're in great shape. And I know that
Thank you.
I'm big on physiology drives psychology. How you work out, how you move, how you sleep, journaling, all those things. And looking into doing a little research on you, I know that's an important part of you. Can you talk about that a little bit? Your physiology, your sleep, how important that is, but also I know you journal, and I want to talk about that a little bit. Why do you journal? What does it do for you?
Yeah, the first part, the physiology of everything, I do it now. In the past, this kind of ties into what we were just talking about before. In the past, I did it so I can play well, and I was like, all right, this is going to give me the best spot to play well and the best results on the field. And after this season, I realize it's not the case. It just makes me feel good. It gives me a high quality of life. It allows me to be the best son I could be, the best brother I could be, and the best friend I could be. So that's why I take care of those things now, because when I sleep, I'm more cognitively there. I feel like my training is at a higher level. It's easier to focus on certain things. I like to eat right because it just makes you feel good. You feel better about yourself when you do it. And then there's the hydration, the supplements and stuff like that to take care of the athlete part of you. But that's why I do it now. But as far as the journaling goes, that helped me a lot. I started doing that when I was with the Phillies, when I'd first signed. Hadn't done it before that, and it really changed my life. It allows me to have an outlet to flush all these thoughts out of my head, because anyone that knows me knows there's a whole lot going on up top. So I need to flush it out a little bit and keep it flowing. So it does help me a lot, and I think it's a big part of the little success
great,
I have.
dude.
So
I always say that if you think it, ink it. If you can get it out of your head onto paper, paper, man, it's just, there's something about a piece that it brings to you. I want to go back to your days,
Absolutely.
man, with the Phillies. You get drafted at a high school, which later though, a little in 20th round, and for you, was that a because
23rd, yeah.
Sometimes if you're not drafted in those first 3 rounds, you don't get the same look as you might if you're drafted later, especially being an 18-year-old kid. Was that an easy decision for you coming out of high school to sign right away, or did you really think about maybe I should go to college and wait a couple years?
I don't know if I said this a lot, but on day 3, I got drafted in the 23rd round on day 3. And I was set on school when I woke up that day, because if I didn't sign, I was going to go down there 2-3 days later for summer school. And I was set on it. And then when my name got called, a switch flipped in my head, and I knew I had wanted to play in the big league since I was 2 years old. I was going to East Carolina, and I wanted to do that for a couple of years. But I really wanted to play in the big leagues my whole life. And immediately then it was an easy choice. The hardest part was saying no to my college coaches, but you get past that. And then when I went down to Clearwater, for the first 3 days, I thought I made the biggest mistake of my life. I was like, I'm not ready for this. I'm so overmatched now. I'm hearing a bunch of Spanish. I don't know what's going on. But once I got past that and leaned into it, it was the best decision I've ever made.
You got the Latino guys that are 18, 19 throwing 1 billion miles an hour. You're like, they have no idea where it's going. You've never seen this kind of pitch, and you're like, oh, maybe I should have gone to East Carolina.
Yeah, it wasn't like that in Sayville, New York. So we had to make an adjustment for sure.
Yeah,
but,
the Long Island
happy
Catholic League didn't have those same kind of arms,
No, not at all. Not at all.
Oh man! So you get traded a couple years later to the Angels. What were your first feelings about getting traded? And obviously it's worked out great. But when you initially got traded? What were you thinking?
It was a whirlwind. I'm sure anyone that has gotten traded knows that it's pretty crazy. I was excited. I felt like I needed a clean slate. In a way, I can't really describe that part, but it was just nice to have a clean slate and go into an organization where you didn't know anybody and you could apply the things you've been working on, things like that. But it was great. I've loved every second of it. And it was pretty nuts, that whole process. But obviously, I'm grateful for how it's worked out, and I met some really great people along the way. Which I'm grateful for also.
A few of those guys too. You came up with, first off, did you play with Mickey Moniak with the Phillies?
I played with him during spring training, case when you're going through different groups and stuff like that. And then he came to rehab when I was in Double-A. So I knew Mickey well, he was always around.
And then Zach Neto, you played with him in the minor leagues coming up. You guys were Double-A for a little bit there too.
I got traded, and I think Net came no more than a week later. So we were in a pretty similar situation, walking into the room, not knowing a lot of guys, and our lockers were next to each other. So
how has it been? Man, look at your roster. Look at a lot of good young players on that team. Obviously, we'll talk about Trout in a little bit, but for you, man, you had a great year last year, 20 home runs, really took a leadership role, it looks like, on that team too. But when you look at the 2025 Angels coming up, and it looks like, Perry's making some moves. You got Kikuchi, you got Hendricks, you got Darno coming, and Soler, as you look at the team right now, what is your feeling going into 2025?
I'll say this, I'm more excited this year than I was this time last year. I mean, we added some pretty big pieces, and guys that have been there and done it, which is huge too, I think, for us young guys. I mean, no what better way to learn than to learn from guys that are in it with you that have done it before. I'm really excited to talk to almost all of them, and they've all been great. Talked to Travis probably the most out of all the new guys, and he's been unbelievable. So I'm really excited to learn from him and get to work with him. And I'm just starting to get the itch now. Usually around Christmas is the time where I'm ready to go. So
That's
I'm
great,
really
dude.
excited to get down there.
And what have you and Travis talked about?
Really everything, to be honest. A lot of game planning stuff and how we're going to go about that. And it's a lot of me listening and asking him questions. So I know he's got the family. I don't want to bother him too much. But a lot of the game planning stuff, I would say, is the biggest topic. But really covering it all.
Dude,
right now.
you know what's funny? I'm excited for you, man, because having a guy like Darno that's been around and for you, I mean, there's so much in the game. And, being back in the dugout last year, I got a chance to play against you and I got a chance to meet you last year, which I was very thrilled with, was when I was with the Yankees. But watching the work that goes in, especially for the catchers, the work that you guys have to do. You got a catcher's meeting, then you got a pitcher's meeting, you got the relievers, the starting pitchers. There's so much on your plate, that you have to lean into. Can you take us through, how has that been for you at the big league level, and what does your routine look like as a catcher, when you come into the field every day?
Yeah, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't overwhelming. Even until the middle of this year, it gets overwhelming, but I think conversations and talking with different guys, the people that are running those meetings or pitchers, whatever, you find your groove and find your flow of how it goes. I do think that it may be a little different this year. Just as with the new staff members we have and different arms and how they want to go about it, as far as the structure of the meetings. But to give you a vague picture of what the routine's like for the game at 6:38 at home, I get there around noon, get my body ready and go get lunch right away. I try to get moving before I start anything. It just helps my brain flow a little bit. I need to move and sweat a little bit before I get going. And then I'll go into my prep work in the cage, come in and have another meeting there. So I have my first meeting of the day. After that, I'll go out, BP, stretch, the typical stuff everyone sees, and then that's when all the meetings usually start. So that first meeting's an advanced meeting with the position players, nothing to do with the pitchers. But after BP, we'll come in. First day of the series, we'll have the reliever meeting, and then go into the starter meeting after that. And then go get a bite to eat, get ready, and go out and play 9 innings.
Wow, dude, yeah, it's a lot. I remember at the end of my career, I was getting there like 3:30, couple shoulder rolls, cage work, ready to roll. I mean, you guys are showing up now at noon.
That's it. Yeah, it is a lot. I learned a lot with how I'm going to structure it this year. I'm still going to get there at the same time, but I just want to make sure I'm not beating my body up too early, because then when 6:38 comes, you're a little shot. So I'm excited to take the new approach and work on that.
You talk about routines, because obviously, we're looking at your routine and the work that goes in. I don't think people understand. Like they see you guys at 6:30, 7 o'clock, but you're there at noon for 162 every single day. And I think we're all interested in the baseball world about Shohei Ohtani as far as like what this guy's routine must be. I mean, it's tough enough to get ready as a catcher and as a hitter in the big leagues, let alone to be a starting pitcher and a hitter. You got a chance to catch Ohtani, a few times up there. And can you just take us through, like, what does his routine look like, Hop? And like, what's he like as a guy, and what was it like catching him?
The way I describe Show to people is, when you see a player come up, he's super talented, but he just dogs the rest. And then people are like, oh, if he just worked hard, what could he be? Like, that's Show. Like, Show not only has that talent, but he works his butt off too. And you just see why he gets the results he does, because he does work so hard and he's so attentive to how he's treating his body and how he's going about it. I haven't seen a lot of guys more detailed in their pregame stuff than he is. And it was pretty cool to see for the year and some change I was up. But that's how I describe Show. Like, he's got both. He's got the talent and he's got the work ethic. And obviously the
when you're
results show.
game planning with a guy like Show and some veteran pitchers, and obviously you're the young catcher, are you calling the game? Is he calling the game? How does that work?
It's a whole lot of listening for the first couple months. I don't say much at first, and then the more comfortable I get, and the more things I see and trust you build, then the more you start chiming in. But yeah, the first couple starts with Show, I don't think I said one word. I was just nodding my head, got it, all right, and then go through and just going into the game like, all right, let's not mess this up. Let's go with what he
It's
wants.
so great, man. It's so great. It's so great. When you look at as a hitter in the big leagues, we're talking about catching and what goes into that. Obviously, there's so much, but as a hitter, what are some of the adjustments that you think that you've made, mentally and physically since you've been up in the big leagues?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much information now with all the whatever it is, the prep work in the game when different guys come into the bullpen. Trying to filter through that and really hammer what I'm good at, I think is going to be really important for me, because last year where I got hurt was I was trying to just fix things with any piece of information I could get. And I think sticking to my strengths and really working off that is going to help, instead of just trying to fill the holes. Because if I just try to fill the holes, then I feel like I lost what came naturally, So I'm trying to stick to those things this off season, and I feel more confident with that approach.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? As a hitter, sometimes you're like, well, you could do this better, this better. I'm like, no, what got me here is what's going to keep me here, is what's going to keep me here a long time. Like, I have to play to my strengths and like kind of hunt that zone. Like, dude, I'm so impressed with your power, but I'm more impressed with your power to right center. I really think like to play in this game, if you can't control the outer half part of the plate, it'd be a long career, because all of a sudden you become so susceptible to that right-handed slider that can just eat you up. What are your strengths, Hop, and what do you, as far as going to right center, have you always done that well? And is that where you're kind of looking for that ball middle away?
I mean, I keep my sights middle, and I'm always on the heater. It's pretty basic. Sliders I've struggled with so far in my career. I mean, I could say that. That's no secret. If I were game planning against me, I'd throw the same thing. But, yeah, I mean, I'm looking for a heater down the middle, and I really feel like naturally I can stay gap to gap. And the balls to right center, when I was younger, they happened here and there. They always caught me by surprise when I was younger, but now I'm understanding how to hit the ball out there, and more importantly, doing without trying. I'm just taking my swing and letting it happen. So I'm glad I'm figuring that out and how to do that more consistently now, because it's something that you just feel better about as a hitter. If you can cover that pitch and hit that ball out there, then it's just nice knowing that that's in your back pocket. So it's something I'm always working on. I don't want to sound like I have it figured out and it's just automatic every time, because anyone that's played knows it's not. But yeah, I'm happy that that's happened more consistently.
Yeah,
for sure.
it's nice, dude. It's funny too. That's one thing I remember getting to the end of my career, and when I retired, I was like, I remember telling my dad, I go, well, one thing I knew, I never figured it out. I was like, all the work you go into, all the cage work, all the mental work, everything like that. I was like, I almost felt I was so close to being the first guy to figure it out, but I never did,
It is true. That's what, to be completely transparent with you, that's the hardest thing about talking to anybody, especially on a camera. It's like I have some stuff that's worked for me in the past, but I don't want to come off like I have the answers by any means, because I know this game and it's going to smack me in the face if I think I have all the answers, So I say all this with just saying that it's worked for me so far.
No, dude, exactly. No, believe me. You could say, hey, listen, you could say it because you're doing it, but you're right, man. As a player, you're almost like, oh man, the worst is when you're so locked in, and then all of a sudden something, I don't know what happens. Maybe you swinging a pitch out of the zone, you ground the ball, and then for like the next week you have no idea. The guy could throw you 5 balls down the middle, and you can't square anything up, and you're swinging through balls that you were just hammering a couple days ago. It's like it's such a mental mind. It messes with you so much.
That's the most frustrating part, I think, is not being successful at the things you were yesterday. It was like, where did this go? It's wild.
Where did it go? You know what I mean? It's like that demeanor, how to slow down. What about I think in life, breathing is so important, but I know in baseball it's important at another level. I know for me, if I didn't have my breathing right, the game sped up on me. You know, do you focus on your breath, and is that an important part of your game to help help you slow it down?
Yeah, my breath's helped me a lot. Different ways to stay present, I would say. The breath falls under all that umbrella. Most of my training this year has been on my own in an empty facility, trying to be as quiet as I can and do different things and use my senses to stay present. I don't want to get too deep with you on it, but like being able to take a swing in a calm state, I feel like no matter what's going on around you, then there's always that internal calm state inside you. You just got to be conscious of it and find it. Not only in my training, like I cold tub a lot. I hop in there every morning when I get out of bed, and that stress helps me find that spot. And then I feel like I can take that with me the rest of the day. So to tie that into the hitting side, I can utilize that as well. If my heart rate's fast, if there's people around me, lights, I can always find that. I can always feel the bat in my hands and hear my gloves against the bat. Things like that I try to use because no one can take that away from me, especially in a stressful situation.
So good, dude. I always say, you know, even talking to the Yankees guys last year, I always felt like it's you versus you. At the end of the day, like as soon as the ball, right, as soon as the ball leaves that guy's hand, you're not facing Max Scherzer anymore. It's Logan O'Hoppe versus himself. Like, are you slow enough with your vision? Are you looking for that fastball down the middle and really on it? Are you letting the ball get to a zone where you feel like you can, are you letting the ball get the last take where you could take that slider off the plate? Like, people don't realize that. Like, we get so caught up in, oh, we're facing so-and-so today. It's like, no, who cares about him? Like, at the end of the day, if I lock into me being great at me versus me, I can beat anybody. If you found that too, like, man, if you can take your mindset and your game as that you versus you, then that's what it's really all about.
Absolutely. I used to get caught up a lot in that when I was younger, you know, but then you face different guys with, you know, bigger names that you watch growing up, and then you're like, okay, this is the same game. They're throwing the same ball. Yeah, I mean, it's something that I think you definitely have to work on. I will say in the minor leagues, I felt like if I got to that place where I can be still, then I felt like I was going to be in a good spot and I could do some damage. But the big leagues was the first time. There are always a couple handfuls of times a year where, like, if Chris Sale throws that heater up and in, it's like, good luck. You know, like you could be in any spot you can, and you may get beat. But more times than not, yes. If you're not in that spot, then you're going to get eaten alive, in my opinion.
Who are some of the guys that you've faced that you feel like, man, that's some of the nastiest stuff I've ever faced? And you know, on top of that, what was the moment you had when you were up in the big leagues saying, wow, that's my big league moment. Like, this is the big leagues.
I mean, Chris Sale and Josh Hader are the first two that come to mind as far as when you're in the box, like, you're battling. But it's so sick. Like, how lucky am I to be able to do that?
Yeah,
you know?
dude.
I can't even imagine doing that if you told me that 15 years ago, you know? So those guys are definitely tougher at bats, or the toughest, I would say. My first, I feel like, to be honest with you guys, there's not one at bat. I don't think I've said this publicly either. There's not one at bat or where I'm on deck and I'm sitting there and I'm not thinking, like, what the hell am I doing? You know, like every at bat, I'm like, this is just nuts that I get to do this every day. But I would say the moment where I really felt that for the first time was my first home run, and it was in Oakland. But I mean, nonetheless, it was pretty wild, rounding the bases in a big league uniform. So that's one I won't forget.
Dude, true gratitude right there, bro. Isn't that true? I believe me. What's funny is too, you'll feel that way. You'll have moments. I don't care if you've had a 10-year career. You're gonna have a moment in that 10th year going, wow, this is incredible. I can't believe I can't believe I'm still doing this, or I can't believe I'm actually wearing a big league uniform. You know, it's just
crazy.
It's amazing.
Can't get past it, and I hope I don't.
Yeah, you won't, dude. Yeah, it's amazing. You'll feel it. It's incredible, dude. One thing I love about you and your whole family, like the O'Hoppe family, is very close, and I know your dad went through a struggle a few years back with cancer, and you guys got together. You had a little party for him at, I believe, Yankee Stadium last year, and it just, you could just see how close you are. Can you talk about the influence that your parents have had on you, you know, for where you are right now in your career, and also too, like, you know, watching your dad fight the way he had to fight, you know, getting through this cancer stuff?
Yeah, it was a special moment. I mean, it's one of those external factors I mentioned when we first started talking about. You just realize how fragile life is and that things aren't life and death. But watching him go through it was unbelievable. Like he was the most positive one out of anybody, and I think that's the key factor in what got him cured so fast. I mean, he got diagnosed with stage 4 lymphoma, and he beat it in 8 months.
Wow.
Like, I don't think you can do that without a good perspective and the positivity he brings. But it was pretty. I don't want to say it was cool to watch him beat that, because he's in his worst state. But it was pretty incredible to see how fast he did it and how efficiently he beat it too. I always say the guy was high energy before, and now he's got these stem cells transplants in him and stuff. He's got more energy than I ever thought he could. He's like rejuvenated now, but he's the best version of him, and couldn't be more proud of him. And the whole family is close, and that's why I come back every year, because I can't leave them.
That's so great, man. What are some of the biggest lessons that your dad's taught you?
Mom and dad both. I was actually telling this story yesterday. I was on a travel team when I was 12, and it was, I think, a 13U team. It was a year or two up, and I wasn't playing at all. And I got home, and I was talking to mom and dad. I was like, I'm tired of this. Like, I'm not playing. I'm sitting on the bench. And I was like, this is not fun. And they sat me down. They're like, well, you're going to sit on that bench and listen and absorb as much as you can. And it doesn't matter if you play or not, and you're going to listen. And things like that. Like, my parents never forced me to do anything. They only care about how I carried myself and acted on the field. But they told me no to some things. Like, I know that most parents, if their kid came to that with that issue, they would say, all right, let's go look for another team. But they didn't care. They paid that money to me to sit on the bench. And that was really like the turning point in my career, I feel like, where I started to understand things. And I was like, all right, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. It was the hardest time when I wasn't playing, but I learned the most, and I'm really grateful for that.
Oh, dude, that's so great. That's so good. Good. That'll be great for all our listeners, because you know what I mean. That's the truth, though. It's the truth. Nowadays, it's just, hey, that coach doesn't not playing yet. We'll find another team. We'll start another team. Not only find another team, we'll start another team. I think that's where our society is, right? Instant gratification. Oh, I gotta get it now. Turns out the biggest lesson you had was the opposite of that. No, you're going to sit on the bench and you're going to listen and you're going to learn.
Absolutely. And isn't it crazy now how many guys in pro ball, and especially in the big leagues, like, there aren't parents like that.
Right.
And like, of the guys you play with, I know you're adults, but it's crazy. Like, the pattern is just so pronounced. Like, you see it. And, it's pretty crazy to see. So I'm going on a tangent now, but I'm really grateful for how my parents went about all that, because I really believe it's molded me into who I am now.
That's great, man. That's great. Well, dude, not only great advice from your parents, guys that you've played with, but we'd be crazy to not have you here and not talk about one of the greatest players of all time. I mean, dude, I don't know. You talk about gratitude. I don't know how fortunate you are. You got a chance to watch the two of the greatest players of all time were on your team. I remember I look back playing with like Ken Griffey Jr., playing with Big Papi, playing with, some Gary Sheffield, some of the greatest players of all time. You had Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout on the same team when they were probably the two best guys in the game. We talked a little about Ohtani, but I want to know about Trout, man. Like, what's it about Mike Trout, seeing him every day, how he goes about his business, and watching it firsthand, like, as far as his skill level goes, what has he taught you? Has he given you any advice? And what's it like playing with him?
Yeah, it always takes me by surprise watching Trouty do what he does. And I say that because anyone that knows Mike, and I've been lucky to know him on a personal level by now, but you just see what a down-to-earth, real dude he is. And then he goes out and plays the way he does. You're like, whoa, this usually doesn't match, But he's an unbelievable human, and he works his butt off, and I'm excited to watch what he's going to do staying healthy for a full year. But yeah, I mean, at first you walk in the clubhouse and you're like, wow, this is unbelievable to watch this. And then as the years have gone on, he's built such a close relationship with me, Neto, the other young guys, and it's been a friendship that I'm really grateful for, and really I learn a lot being friends with him, obviously, and I'm grateful that I have it, because it's something I wouldn't get anywhere else.
Yeah. Anything you've learned from him? Just, I don't know if he's ever said anything to you, or just the way he plays the game that you've kind of brought into your game.
we've talked about some different things about how to go about your work before the game, how to walk around and be a professional, all things that I try to pick his brain about. I don't want to go into too much depth, but he's helped me in more ways than one, and most of them being outside of the lines for sure.
Love that, man. Love that. And last little question here. I always like to throw this out there. If there was one, let's say if there was three people, historical figures or somebody that's not alive right now, and Logan O'Hoppe could sit down with them and pick their brain, give me three people that you're like, man, I'd love to have dinner with them.
Three that are not alive, or they could be
not
alive?
alive.
Okay, not alive. That's a really good question.
Because if they're alive, it's too easy. You could be like your dad, Ohtani. Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're right. My buddy Corey Phelan, he passed away actually right after I debuted in 22, and he was 20. We played with the Phillies together. I just wish we could bring him back a little bit and talk to him about it, because he was a kid that was on his way and was going to do it. So Corey is one for sure. I'm trying to think. I would love to sit down and talk to Yogi Berra, obviously, pick his brain. That's another one. And being a Yankee fan growing up, obviously his name was pretty common in the house as well. The third one is tough. I may have to get back to you on the third one. But those are two that I would sit back with. Yeah. 2 or 3 is all I got right now.
We'll take those two. Now I have to stay on the Yogi Berra bit, because dude, I knew you were a big Yankee fan growing up, and being a big, like Chinch is a big Yankee fan. Like you guys are different animals, Yankee fans. You know what I mean? Like, so what was it like for you, man? First time coming in, playing at Yankee Stadium, and what memories do you have of that?
Yeah, it was pretty surreal. I mean, now I can't stand them. Like, they beat us so many times. It's like my perspective's totally flipped. But being at the stadium for the first time, it was pretty wild, because I've been there so much growing up. So when I was out in BP, I was like picturing myself from every seat I had sat in, because we sat anywhere we can get into, from the bleachers to the third deck to the bottom, wherever. So it was pretty cool. It felt like I was somewhere for the first time that I've been 1,000 times before, because you don't know what the clubhouse looks like. You don't know what the tunnel looks like. So being there was a weird feeling. It was like, wait, this all looks familiar, but it's completely new. So those are the two things I would say were the coolest and most surreal parts of it. Believe it or not, no, and it wasn't, because like we talked about before, the family is really close, but with that comes everyone being out of their minds. So everyone bought tickets beforehand. Like no one asked, and the people I love the most that I want to leave tickets for are the ones that always buy their tickets anyway. So it drives me nuts a little bit. Like, you want to take care of the people you love, but then they're showing up anyway, but something I'm really grateful for.
It's so great. Isn't that so true, dude? I grew up a Pirate fan growing up here in Pittsburgh, and everyone's like, oh, who do you root for now? And I'm like, you know what? It's a shame, because when you play in the big leagues and you play against all these different teams, like the fan in you dies a little bit. You're like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, you just.
It's so true.
Do you agree with that? Like that fan in you dies a little bit.
Absolutely. And I realized that for the first time this year. We were in Boston. We got there and we had an off day in Boston before a series. Right. And anyone that knows our family, like we're huge baseball people. So I went around, walked around Boston, had a great day. And then I looked and they were playing the Orioles that night. And I was like, why not? So I bought a ticket in the bleachers and went and sat there for an inning. And then I had my player card on me and I was like, let me see where this could get me. And I ended up sitting on the monster for like the back half of the game, like the last 5 innings. It was sick.
Way.
But I realized that. I was like, wow, I'm not watching the game the same. Like, I was watching the game, and I tried every outlet I can use to be a fan. Like, I bought a hot dog, like going to sit around, like he did the whole thing, but I couldn't. I was going through like the reports in my head. I was like, how am I getting this guy out? I was like, man, I can't just sit back and watch a game anymore, man. But that was one of my favorite days of the year for sure, going to that stadium.
It's so great. It's so true, dude. Yeah, you look at it differently. Everything's so different now. You're like, oh, get me back to the days I had the hot dog and the nachos, Bel Grande with the salsa and the and little jalapenos. You know what I mean? I want to get back to 14-year-old Sean Casey. Now I'm a mess. I'm a mess now.
It's true. Yeah, I just want to be stressed about like getting my homework done. Now I'm going back to the hotel sweating about playing tomorrow.
Yeah, it's so true, dude. Oh, it's so true. Logan, dude, thank you so much for your time today, bro. This has been so great for Chinch and I, and our listeners will be incredible, man. And have a great off season, dude. Good luck in the season coming up, and looking forward to following you and keeping connected with you, man.
I appreciate you guys having me. Thank you. Hopefully I'll see you guys soon.
We will, man. Thanks, brother.